Introduction. Awakening dangerous confidence. Confidence is often misunderstood. Society tells us it is loud, performative, and visible. We are conditioned to believe that those who speak the most, dominate conversations, or flaunt their achievements are the confident ones, but this is a lie. Loudness is not strength. It is often the mask of insecurity. Performance is not power. It is the echo of uncertainty. True confidence is silent. It is invisible to those who cannot perceive it. It moves quietly but leaves a trail of influence and authority that is undeniable. Dangerous confidence is not about being liked or accepted. It is about being unstoppable. Most people live their lives reacting to the world. They measure their worth by the opinions of others, seek approval for their actions, and allow fear to dictate their choices. They chase validation like a drug, constantly seeking reassurance, praise, or recognition. This cycle creates a fragile sense of self, a house built on sand. One criticism, one rejection, or one failure can crumble it entirely. Dangerous confidence, on the other hand, is a fortress. It is built on internal authority, self-respect, discipline, and mastery over fear. It cannot be shaken by judgment, disapproval, or circumstance. It is earned, not given. The journey toward dangerous confidence begins in the mind. It begins with the realization that all external validation is temporary. Praise fades, attention shifts, and approval is never guaranteed. Confidence rooted in external factors is like a candle in the wind, fragile, dependent, and fleeting. True power arises from within. It comes from a mind trained to act decisively, a body disciplined to respond, and a spirit unshakable under pressure. Dangerous confidence is a force that cannot be borrowed. It must be cultivated relentlessly. Fear is the first test. Fear is universal. Every human being experiences it. It manifests as hesitation, doubt, anxiety, and procrastination. Most people interpret fear as a stop sign, a signal that they are not ready, not capable, or not worthy. This is where the path splits. Those who follow the path of reaction are paralyzed by fear, allowing it to dictate their choices and limit their potential. Those who embrace dangerous confidence learn to treat fear as fuel. Fear becomes energy. Fear becomes a signal pointing toward growth, influence, and action. By learning to act despite fear, you transform a weakness into your greatest asset. Approval is another silent chain that binds most people. From childhood, we are taught that acceptance equals survival. Compliments, recognition, and praise become addictive. When we rely on the judgment of others for our sense of worth, we surrender our power. Every decision is filtered through the lens of external validation. People-pleasing becomes a habit. Over-explaining becomes a default response. Hesitation becomes second nature. Dangerous confidence breaks this cycle. Approval becomes irrelevant. Decisions are made based on internal authority, values, and purpose. When you act without the need for approval, the world begins to respond differently to you, not because you demand it, but because your internal certainty commands respect. The ego is a subtle enemy disguised as strength. Most people mistake arrogance, loudness, or dominance for confidence. Ego reacts. Confidence responds. Ego crumbles under criticism. Confidence remains steady in adversity. Ego seeks to impress. Confidence seeks to act. Confusing the two leads to fragile authority, dependency on external admiration, and constant vulnerability. Dangerous confidence is quiet, measured, and deliberate. It is not performative. It is inherent. It is unshakable because it is anchored in self-mastery, not perception. Every chapter in this book is designed to deconstruct these misconceptions and rebuild confidence from the inside out. You will learn to master your inner dialogue, to shape your thoughts into deliberate, constructive narratives rather than reactive or destructive patterns. You will learn to harness fear as a tool rather than a barrier. You will cultivate self-respect so strong that no one can diminish your authority. You will embrace discipline as a habit, forging a daily practice of excellence that compounds into unshakable presence. You will discover the power of silence, strategic observation, and deliberate action, turning your presence into a force that influences without effort. Dangerous confidence is not superficial. It does not rely on wealth, status, or charm. These are tools that may amplify presence, but they are irrelevant if the internal foundation is weak. True authority comes from mastery over yourself, your emotions, thoughts, actions, and reactions. When your internal world is disciplined, your external world bends naturally. People sense certainty, presence, and competence instinctively. They respond to it, respect it, and often fear it. Confidence becomes both shield and weapon, silent yet undeniable. This journey is not easy. It will test you. You will be forced to confront habits of fear, indecision, and dependence on approval. You will face discomfort, resistance, and challenge. But each test is an opportunity to grow. Each challenge is a moment to convert weakness into strength, hesitation into action, and doubt into mastery. Dangerous confidence is forged in adversity, honed in solitude, and solidified through relentless practice. It is earned, not inherited. The principles in this book are not abstract theories. They are practical, actionable, and grounded in real human psychology. You will discover methods to transform your thought patterns, master your emotions, and build a presence that commands respect. You will learn the art of strategic silence, the discipline of daily excellence, and the power of self-respect. You will understand that confidence is not loud, it is deliberate, quiet, and invisible. Yet its impact is unmistakable. Every chapter will challenge conventional thinking. You will confront societal myths about confidence, dissect the subtle ways fear and approval manipulate behavior, and examine the internal habits that either reinforce or erode authority. You will be invited to act deliberately, to reflect relentlessly, and to build a mindset that is resistant to distraction, criticism, and uncertainty. The path is rigorous, but it is transformative. Dangerous confidence is not an overnight phenomenon. It is the cumulative result of conscious, deliberate, and disciplined action. By the end of this book, you will understand that confidence is a force. It is not performative, loud, or dependent on circumstance. It is internal, disciplined, and unshakable. Dangerous confidence is a product of mastery over self, thoughts, emotions, habits, and actions. It is built through awareness, self-respect, discipline, and the courage to act despite fear and doubt. It is quiet yet magnetic, subtle yet undeniable, invisible yet commanding. As you read, reflect on your own life. Observe where fear dictates your choices, where the need for approval limits your actions, and where ego masquerades as strength. Begin to cultivate internal authority, self-respect, and deliberate discipline. Harness fear as fuel, silence as power, and daily excellence as your weapon. Dangerous confidence is not simply a concept, it is a lifestyle, a philosophy, and a continuous process of refinement. It is earned one deliberate act at a time. The journey ahead is yours to claim. The principles revealed in this book are a roadmap, not a guarantee, but a guide. Mastery requires application, persistence, and relentless action. Every choice you make, every habit you cultivate, every fear you face, and every decision you execute under pressure compounds into the presence, authority, and confidence that is dangerous and undeniable. This book is an invitation to step into power, to act deliberately, and to claim mastery over yourself. It is an invitation to transform fear into fuel, hesitation into decisiveness, and internal authority into external influence. Dangerous confidence is not a destination. It is the life you create by committing to excellence, self-mastery, and deliberate action every day. Prepare yourself. The path will challenge you, stretch you, and demand that you confront uncomfortable truths about yourself. But it will also awaken a force within you, a power, presence, and authority that few ever cultivate. By embracing these principles, you are no longer a passenger in life reacting to circumstance, judgment, or fear. You become the architect of your destiny, the master of your mind, and the embodiment of dangerous confidence. This is the journey of transformation. It begins here. It begins now. Chapter 1. Confidence is not loud. Most people misunderstand confidence. They confuse it with noise. They assume that the loudest voice in the room is the strongest, the most dominant, the most certain. They believe confidence is demonstrated through volume, repetition, or visible assertion. In reality, excessive loudness is often a mask, an attempt to cover insecurity, fear, or the need for validation. Noise becomes armor for those who are uncertain, a desperate shield to hide fragility behind charisma or presence. The louder the performance, the weaker the foundation. Loud people seek attention. They talk more than they listen. They interrupt, exaggerate stories, and constantly fill silence with words because silence forces self-awareness. Silence exposes insecurity. Silence forces reflection. Noise hides the emptiness beneath. It is a tool of distraction for themselves as much as for others. The moment the attention fades, so does their sense of worth. Without the eyes of an audience, their confidence crumbles. Under pressure, confrontation, or scrutiny, the loud mask often fractures, revealing uncertainty, impulsiveness, or fear. This is why loud confidence is fleeting. It is dependent on external validation, applause, and acknowledgement. It is conditional, not inherent. True confidence does not compete for attention. It commands authority. Authority is not announced with words, gestures, or volume. It is felt. It resonates from a source that does not require approval, recognition, or reinforcement. It emerges from inner certainty, self-trust, and emotional stability. The confident individual is not performing for others. They are aligned with themselves. Their actions, posture, and presence reflect internal mastery. Unlike the loud persona, they do not seek to impress. They simply are. Their calmness unsettles those who rely on chaos to feel powerful. Their poise draws attention without effort. The room notices not because they demand recognition, but because presence that is grounded in certainty cannot be ignored. Silent confidence operates differently. It is not the absence of communication, it is the mastery of it. It shows up in posture, eye contact, and restraint. It is the composure maintained when others react impulsively. It is the patience to listen when others speak, the power to respond rather than react, and the subtle assertion of authority without force. Silence, when chosen, is not weakness. It is control. It is deliberate. Every pause is a statement. Every measured word carries more weight because it is intentional. The person who says less signals that their words matter, that they are selective, and that they exist on a higher frequency than reactive noise. Performative confidence, in contrast, is designed to be seen. It is exaggerated body language, forced dominance, and constant self-promotion. It is the type of confidence that collapses under questioning, confrontation, or inconsistency. Performative confidence depends on narrative control, manipulation of perception, and the presence of an audience. Silent confidence, however, endures. It is not contingent on admiration or recognition. It does not need to convince. It simply exists. It thrives independently of circumstance because it is rooted internally, not externally. It does not demand attention. It commands it effortlessly. Dangerous confidence begins when you stop trying to sound confident and start becoming secure. It emerges when you no longer feel the need to prove yourself to anyone, when you realize that external validation is optional and your own approval is sufficient. At this stage, presence becomes magnetic. You are noticed not because you shout, gesture, or perform, but because the energy you project is undeniable. The world senses certainty, composure, and stability even before a word is spoken. This form of confidence cannot be challenged, bought, or faked. It is cultivated through internal mastery, consistent action, and unwavering self-respect. The path to this dangerous confidence starts with awareness. Recognize where your behavior is performative, loud, or reactive. Observe how often you seek validation, exaggerate, or interrupt to maintain dominance in conversation. Examine the triggers that compel you to overcompensate. Awareness alone does not create confidence, but it illuminates the patterns that undermine it. Once these patterns are identified, they can be transformed into intentional behaviors rooted in self-trust rather than insecurity. Emotional regulation is essential. Loudness often emerges from a mind that is reactive. Someone whose thoughts, fears, and insecurities dictate behavior. By mastering your emotional responses, you maintain composure under scrutiny. Calmness under pressure communicates authority far more effectively than volume or aggression ever could. It signals that your internal state is independent of external chaos, that your power is intrinsic rather than performative. People are drawn to this authority, and even unconsciously, they defer to it. Emotional mastery transforms presence from superficial to undeniable. Physical presence also communicates silent confidence. Posture, eye contact, breathing, and gestures all contribute to a person's aura of authority. The confident individual occupies space intentionally. They move deliberately. They command attention without words. Contrast this with the loud performative persona whose physicality often overcompensates for insecurity. Gestures are exaggerated. Movements are erratic. And body language seeks to dominate rather than reflect authority. Silent confidence flows naturally. Performative confidence strains visibly. Language, too, is a reflection of true confidence. The quiet individual speaks when necessary, chooses words deliberately, and communicates clarity over volume. They do not over-explain, justify, or argue for recognition. Words are strategic, precise, and impactful. Conversely, performative confidence often manifests as incessant talking, over-explaining, and verbal repetition. It seeks to dominate the narrative because the individual fears the silence will reveal inadequacy. Silence, when mastered, becomes a tool for amplification. Every word spoken resonates, every statement carries authority, and every pause reinforces presence. Self-respect underpins silent confidence. When you respect yourself, you no longer allow external judgment to define your worth. Approval becomes optional. Respect is self-generated. Boundaries are clear, non-negotiable, and consistently maintained. People unconsciously sense the integrity of self-respect and respond accordingly. Authority, presence, and influence are amplified not by noise, but by the unwavering alignment between values, behavior, and presence. Dangerous confidence is rooted in this internal integrity. To cultivate dangerous confidence, one must embrace discomfort. The loud seek comfort in attention and approval. The confident embrace uncertainty, challenge, and reflection. Silent confidence thrives in environments where performative personalities flounder. Pressure, scrutiny, and unpredictability do not shake it, they refine it. Confidence becomes resilient because it is internalized. It does not waver with circumstance, confrontation, or chaos. This is the hallmark of dangerous confidence: stability in the storm, calm amid reaction, and power that is invisible yet undeniable. In practice, silent confidence transforms daily interactions. In meetings, conversations, and negotiations, your presence alone commands attention. People instinctively feel that you are composed, deliberate, and internally sovereign. When others speak impulsively, reactively, or performatively, your quiet authority amplifies. You are not drawn into arguments or competition for attention. Instead, you observe, analyze, and act strategically. Your words, when finally delivered, carry weight precisely because they are not constant. Every silence becomes a statement, every pause a declaration, and every measured response an act of power. True confidence is iterative. It grows with awareness, reflection, and deliberate practice. Every interaction is an opportunity to reinforce internal authority, test composure, and refine presence. Dangerous confidence is not performative. It is habitual. It is forged in the repeated decision to prioritize internal certainty over external validation. It becomes a lifestyle rather than a performance, an internal state rather than a mask, and a force that others sense but cannot replicate. In conclusion, confidence is not loud. It does not need to prove itself, dominate conversation, or fill silence. True confidence commands authority, radiates presence, and endures independently of circumstance. Performative confidence collapses under pressure. Silent confidence thrives. It is built through self-trust, emotional mastery, self-respect, and deliberate practice. Dangerous confidence begins when you stop trying to sound confident and start becoming secure. When you no longer need the audience, you become impossible to ignore. Silence, composure, and intentionality are the weapons of the confident. Noise is the shield of the insecure. To move from performative to dangerous confidence, you must internalize authority, respect your own presence, and act with deliberate calm. Every word, gesture, and choice becomes a reflection of mastery rather than insecurity. Dangerous confidence is not announced. It is felt, acknowledged, and unavoidable. It begins within, and its impact is undeniable in the world around you. Chapter 2: Why Most People Never Feel Confident. Confidence is often thought of as a natural trait, something you are born with or without. Society perpetuates the myth that some people are naturally confident, while others are destined to live in doubt, fear, and hesitation. But confidence is not innate. It is a skill, a mindset, and a practice. The reason most people never feel confident is not because they are incapable. It is because their minds, emotions, and habits have been conditioned to reject it. From childhood, fear, shame, and social programming shape behavior in ways that undermine self-assurance and reinforce dependency on external validation. The first obstacle is conditioning. From a young age, we are taught to conform. Rules, expectations, and judgments from parents, teachers, and peers shape perception. Don't speak out of turn. Don't be selfish. Don't stand out. These lessons, though often well-intentioned, implant subconscious scripts of limitation. Children learn to prioritize approval over authenticity, compliance over courage, and avoidance over exploration. As adults, these patterns persist. The mind associates confidence with risk, judgment, and exposure. Speaking up, asserting boundaries, or pursuing goals triggers subtle anxiety because internalized programming signals potential disapproval or punishment. Shame is another silent enemy. It infiltrates confidence from multiple angles. People are shamed for failure, mistakes, or even ambition. They internalize criticism, creating a persistent voice of doubt. Shame teaches people to hide, defer, or diminish themselves in pursuit of acceptance. Confidence is fragile when shame dominates thought. A person who has internalized constant judgment questions their worth and hesitates to act decisively. This self-doubt becomes habitual, reinforcing fear and preventing authentic expression. Shame is a quiet thief. It does not attack openly, but it undermines belief in oneself at every turn. Social programming compounds these issues. Society celebrates certain behaviors, appearances, and accomplishments while dismissing others. People are judged for what they say, how they look, or what they achieve. Social comparison becomes a constant pressure. When worth is measured against others, self-confidence becomes conditional. Approval, recognition, and validation are sought relentlessly. The mind learns to tether self-esteem to outcomes that are often beyond control. True confidence is impossible under such conditions because it relies on internal authority, not external measurement. Fear of judgment and rejection is another dominant factor. Most people avoid situations that challenge their ego. They remain in comfort zones, even when those zones limit growth. Fear whispers that exposure will lead to humiliation, failure, or loss. Every act of hesitation reinforces this fear, creating a feedback loop that normalizes avoidance. The more one avoids, the less capable they feel, and the less confident they become. Confidence requires risk. Without confronting fear, hesitation solidifies into a permanent state of self-doubt. Those who never step into discomfort remain trapped in a cycle of imagined inadequacy. The trap of external validation is pervasive. From social media likes to praise from colleagues, people constantly seek reassurance to confirm self-worth. Decisions, actions, and even thoughts are filtered through the lens of perceived approval. External validation is a double-edged sword. It temporarily elevates confidence but makes it dependent on others' perceptions. The moment approval fades, insecurity resurfaces. Dangerous confidence cannot coexist with dependency on validation. To break free, one must cultivate internal approval, learning to trust judgment, worth, and capability from within. Low confidence also stems from habitual overthinking. People who lack confidence obsess over potential outcomes, judgment, and mistakes. Every action is analyzed, second-guessed, and filtered through fear. This mental loop paralyzes decision-making and erodes trust in oneself. Dangerous confidence, in contrast, relies on decisive action. Confidence grows when action is taken despite uncertainty. The mind becomes a tool, not a prison. Overthinking destroys this dynamic because it replaces action with doubt, reflection with hesitation, and potential with stasis. A subtle but powerful factor is comparison. People constantly measure themselves against others: appearance, success, intelligence, social standing, or charisma. Comparison reinforces insecurity. Even accomplishments feel insufficient because someone else appears to surpass them. Confidence cannot coexist with comparison because it relies on self-mastery, not relative assessment. True self-assurance emerges when you stop measuring yourself against external standards and begin measuring growth against your own potential. Childhood experiences often leave lasting scars. Past criticism, neglect, or ridicule is stored in memory, influencing adult behavior. People carry these experiences unconsciously, and they shape responses to challenge, confrontation, and risk. These imprints often dictate self-perception and reinforce fear. Confidence must be cultivated deliberately to overwrite these limiting scripts. The process requires awareness, courage, and consistent action. Without it, the mind defaults to self-doubt and avoidance. Breaking free from these patterns requires self-awareness, reflection, and practice. Recognize where fear dictates choices, where approval drives behavior, and where habitual doubt limits action. Observe moments of hesitation, overthinking, or excessive comparison. This is not self-criticism, it is diagnosis. Awareness creates space to act differently, to consciously reinforce confidence through deliberate choice rather than reaction. Confidence is learned through repetition, reflection, and mastery over the patterns that previously controlled behavior. Dangerous confidence emerges when you internalize authority, when worth is no longer tethered to approval, when fear is treated as fuel, when hesitation is replaced by decisive action, and when reflection replaces overthinking. Confidence becomes inherent. It is no longer a borrowed state or temporary performance. It is a consistent presence. People feel it. Authority is sensed before it is spoken. Presence becomes magnetic. Decisions are deliberate. Actions carry weight. This is the transformation from reactive insecurity to unshakable self-assurance. In conclusion, most people never feel confident because their minds, habits, and emotions have been conditioned to doubt. Childhood conditioning, shame, social programming, fear of judgment, the need for validation, overthinking, comparison, and past experiences all conspire to undermine confidence. But confidence is not inaccessible. It is a skill, a mindset, and a deliberate practice. Dangerous confidence begins when internal authority is reclaimed, when worth is internalized, when fear is confronted, when habits reinforce mastery, when self-trust replaces doubt. It is forged through awareness, reflection, and deliberate action. Those who cultivate it do not need applause, attention, or validation. They command presence naturally, respond instead of react, and navigate life with clarity, calm, and unstoppable force. Chapter 3. Confidence versus ego. Confidence and ego are two forces that shape human behavior in profound ways, yet most people confuse the two. On the surface, they can appear similar. Both carry a sense of self, both can create influence, and both can inspire or intimidate others. But beneath the surface, confidence and ego are fundamentally different, so different that mistaking one for the other can sabotage your life and keep you trapped in cycles of insecurity, frustration, and conflict. At its core, ego is fragile. Ego depends on the opinions of others. It needs to be seen, recognized, and validated to exist. Praise feeds it. Criticism kills it. Ego is a mirror that reflects how the world perceives you rather than who you truly are. One insult, one rejection, one small failure, and the ego wavers, lashing out to protect itself. It demands superiority and reacts aggressively when its illusion of control is challenged. Ego is defensive, emotional, and volatile. It cannot withstand pressure because it is built on approval and comparison. Confidence, by contrast, is stable and unshakable. Confidence does not require constant reinforcement from the outside world. It is rooted in self-trust, experience, and internal certainty. A confident person can face criticism, rejection, or failure without losing composure. Confidence is like a solid foundation beneath a storm. It does not bend with the wind. It is calm, measured, and enduring because it is built on reality rather than perception. Unlike ego, confidence does not need to dominate or boast. Its power is intrinsic, not performative. The difference between ego and confidence becomes most apparent in how each reacts to challenges. Ego reacts. It reacts to criticism with anger, defensiveness, or excuses. It reacts to competition with envy or sabotage. It reacts to failure with self-pity or blame. Every reaction is fueled by fear. Fear of being seen as weak, fear of being ignored, fear of losing status. Reaction is impulsive and often destructive because it prioritizes emotional survival over rational judgment. The ego is trapped in a loop of proving itself, seeking constant reassurance and defending a fragile identity. It is a prisoner of its own perception. Confidence, on the other hand, responds. Confidence observes, evaluates, and chooses an intentional course of action. When faced with criticism, a confident person listens, filters what is useful, and discards the rest without emotional attachment. When confronted with failure, they adapt, learn, and continue without self-doubt. When challenged, they maintain composure, projecting calm authority rather than desperation. Response is deliberate. Reaction is impulsive. Confidence thrives under pressure because it is grounded in reality, not ego. It does not depend on perception. It depends on action and clarity. A major pitfall occurs when people confuse arrogance with strength. Arrogance is ego in disguise. It is loud, boastful, and confrontational. Arrogance relies on comparison, measuring self-worth against the perceived weakness or inferiority of others. An arrogant person believes they are superior and expects others to recognize it, but arrogance is brittle. Its power is performative and collapses when faced with genuine challenge. Arrogance seeks to dominate while confidence simply exists. Confidence commands respect without demanding it, attracts attention without forcing it, and moves with quiet authority rather than theatrical posturing. Confusing the two is dangerous because it teaches people to project strength without actually developing it. Arrogance may appear intimidating, but confidence is quietly unstoppable. Consider the world of business, politics, or personal relationships. The loudest voices often grab attention in meetings or social settings, but it is rarely the loudest person who drives results. It is the calm, composed individual who speaks with precision, listens with intent, and acts with certainty. They do not need to shout, interrupt, or exaggerate. Their presence carries weight because confidence is inherently magnetic. People sense it on a subconscious level. Ego, on the other hand, must constantly assert itself to feel alive. Its strength is temporary and fragile, dependent on external approval. Emotionally, ego is reactive and exhausting. Ego constantly monitors for threats to self-image. It fears humiliation, exposure, and rejection. Every interaction becomes a test. Am I liked? Am I respected? Do they recognize my superiority? This hypervigilance creates anxiety, defensiveness, and insecurity, even in moments of apparent dominance. Ego-driven behavior can appear confident in the short term, but it is unsustainable. Confidence, however, is effortless. It does not need constant monitoring because it is rooted in reality. I know my value. I know my capabilities. I do not need anyone to tell me who I am. This stability is what makes confidence dangerous. It cannot be shaken by insults, failure, or criticism. The social implications are profound. People with inflated egos often push others away. Their need to be recognized creates tension and resentment. Their overreactions to minor slights make collaboration difficult. Conversely, confident individuals inspire trust. People are drawn to them because they radiate certainty without threatening others. Confidence is contagious. Ego is repellent. One can feel it immediately when entering a room. The ego demands attention, while confidence commands respect. Understanding the difference also transforms internal experience. Ego binds you to comparison, envy, and insecurity. It makes happiness dependent on others' approval. Confidence liberates you from this trap. When you are confident, external validation is a bonus, not a necessity. You are free to act, to speak, to lead, and to create without being constrained by fear. Confidence does not deny reality. It embraces it, accepts failure as a teacher, and uses challenges as fuel for growth. To cultivate dangerous confidence, you must recognize when ego is speaking. Ego is loud, defensive, anxious, and reactive. Confidence is quiet, composed, and observant. Ego exaggerates its achievements. Confidence does not need to. Ego criticizes and compares. Confidence focuses on mastery and action. Ego fears failure. Confidence uses failure as a stepping stone. Mastery over ego is not suppression. It is awareness. When you act with intention rather than reaction, you step into confidence. Another common trap is the illusion of control. Ego tries to control outcomes and manipulate perception to protect itself. Confidence controls only what it can, its actions, words, and mindset, while remaining undisturbed by what it cannot. This distinction is subtle, but crucial. Dangerous confidence is not about controlling others. It is about mastering oneself. Finally, dangerous confidence requires discipline, experience, and self-honesty. Confidence is earned by confronting reality, failing deliberately, learning deeply, and trusting yourself despite uncertainty. Ego may provide temporary satisfaction, but it cannot withstand the pressure of reality. Confidence thrives under pressure because it is built on truth, not perception. The quiet authority of confidence is magnetic, respected, and unshakable. Ego may roar, but confidence whispers, and its whispers command the world. Chapter 4. Self-trust, the real source of power. True power does not come from titles, wealth, or influence. It does not come from the admiration of others or the cloud of networks. True power, dangerous, unshakable power comes from one place: self-trust. To trust yourself is to build a fortress around your mind, your decisions, and your actions. A fortress that no external opinion, criticism, or failure can breach. Without self-trust, Confidence is a fragile mask, easily shattered the moment life applies pressure. Self-trust is not an abstract concept, it is a daily practice. Every choice you make, every boundary you set, every action you take without hesitation strengthens it. The person who trusts themselves does not need constant reassurance. They are not at the mercy of opinions or circumstances. Their decisions are anchored in clarity and reality rather than fear and doubt. This is why self-trust is the foundation of dangerous confidence. Without it, even the most impressive achievements feel hollow, and the loudest declarations of power crumble under scrutiny. Most people lose self-trust early, often without realizing it. From childhood, we are taught to doubt our instincts. Mistakes are punished, and deviation from the rules is met with shame. Over time, we internalize the idea that our judgment is flawed, that our desires are selfish, and that our instincts are unreliable. We learn to outsource our decisions to authority figures, friends, or societal expectations. This creates a psychological dependency, a condition in which your confidence is only as strong as the validation you receive from others. When that external scaffolding disappears, insecurity rushes in, and your inner world feels like a collapsing building. Rebuilding self-trust requires brutal honesty with oneself. It requires acknowledging the patterns of doubt, hesitation, and fear that have controlled you. It requires observing how often you compromise your values or ignore your instincts to appease others. The process is uncomfortable because it forces you to confront years of conditioning and internalized shame. But discomfort is the soil in which self-trust grows. Each time you act despite fear, each time you follow your intuition rather than external pressure, you add a brick to your inner fortress. A crucial aspect of self-trust is keeping promises to yourself. Most people underestimate how corrosive it is to break their own commitments. Skipping small promises, like waking early, completing a task, or standing up for yourself, erodes trust in a subtle but profound way. Every broken promise reinforces the subconscious belief that your word, your judgment, and your intentions are unreliable. The antidote is simple but powerful. Do what you say you will do. Begin with small, deliberate actions. Show up for yourself. Your internal credibility is the currency of self-trust, and every action deposits value into that account. Self-trust also demands emotional integrity. Many people sabotage themselves not with bad decisions, but with self-betrayal. They ignore their feelings, suppress their instincts, or rationalize compromises that feel wrong. Over time, this disconnect from oneself creates an internal tension that manifests as doubt, indecision, and anxiety. Learning to acknowledge, respect, and act according to your internal compass is essential. It is not reckless impulsivity. It is disciplined alignment. It is saying to yourself, I am my authority. I trust my judgment. I act because I believe in what I decide. Another layer of self-trust is resilience. Even when your decisions fail, even when outcomes are harsh or unexpected, the confident individual does not abandon their trust in themselves. Failure is not a verdict on your worth or intelligence. It is a lesson, data for refinement, and a test of commitment. Ego reacts to failure with shame, denial, or self-blame. Confidence responds by analyzing, learning, and adapting without surrendering to fear. Resilience is the crucible in which self-trust is forged. It is the proof that your inner compass works even when the path is treacherous. Self-trust also liberates you from dependence on external approval. When you trust yourself, you no longer require validation to act, speak, or stand your ground. Decisions are made from a place of certainty rather than desperation. You no longer seek permission to exist, to succeed, or to assert your values. This liberation is dangerous to those who thrive on controlling others, because you are no longer vulnerable to manipulation. Your authority becomes internalized. No insult, no judgment, no social pressure can shake your foundation. Consider the psychological impact of self-trust in social dynamics. People who trust themselves exude an aura of quiet authority. Others sense it instantly, even if it is subtle. Their words carry weight, not because they are loud, persuasive, or performative, but because they act in alignment with their own reality. They do not over-explain, justify, or seek approval. They speak and act with clarity. This magnetic presence is rooted in the unshakable certainty of self-trust. Ego-driven individuals, in contrast, try to imitate this presence, often through noise, intimidation, or artificial dominance. The mimicry is transparent, because without inner trust, every display is a performance. The cultivation of self-trust requires daily rituals and discipline. Journaling, reflection, meditation, and deliberate action strengthen it. Setting boundaries and enforcing them consistently reinforces the message that your judgment matters. Confronting fear, embracing discomfort, and acting in alignment with your principles gradually solidifies inner authority. Over time, these practices create an internal ecosystem where confidence is not borrowed or performative. It is inherent, durable, and formidable. Ultimately, dangerous confidence is inseparable from self-trust. You cannot project power externally if you have not mastered authority internally. People can fake confidence through noise, aggression, or appearance, but without self-trust, it collapses at the first test. True, unshakable confidence, the kind that commands respect, inspires loyalty, and instills fear when necessary, stems from the quiet certainty that you are capable, reliable, and aligned with yourself. It is a confidence that cannot be undermined, because it is rooted in something far deeper than approval, reputation, or perception. It is rooted in you. Self-trust is your ultimate weapon. It is your anchor in chaos, your shield against manipulation, and your source of unshakable authority. It requires honesty, discipline, and courage, but once cultivated, it makes you unstoppable. When you trust yourself fully, you no longer react out of fear, hesitate out of doubt, or compromise out of insecurity. You act decisively, speak with authority, and live without apology. Dangerous confidence is born in this space, and once you step into it, the world recognizes it immediately. Chapter 5. Emotional control. Authority. Emotions are the most powerful force a human possesses, yet they are also the most dangerous when uncontrolled. Every interaction, every decision, and every moment of influence is shaped by emotional energy. Those who understand this principle, who can master their own emotional state, hold authority that is invisible, undeniable, and dangerous. Conversely, those who are ruled by emotion are predictable, reactive, and weak. Emotional control is not merely self-discipline, it is the foundation of power itself. Most people underestimate how much emotion governs their lives. Anger flares at minor provocations, anxiety paralyzes decisions, and frustration undermines relationships. In the social hierarchy of life, emotional volatility is a liability. It signals weakness, creates opportunities for exploitation, and invites manipulation. People who cannot control their reactions hand authority over to others on a silver platter. Emotional control is not about suppressing feeling. It is about channeling it, directing it, and using it as a tool rather than a weapon pointed at yourself. The difference between reacting and responding is the difference between weakness and power. Ego reacts. It is impulsive, defensive, and immediate. When insulted, ego retaliates. When stressed, it panics. When frustrated, it lashes out. Reaction is emotional. It is raw, uncontrolled, and often destructive. Confidence responds. Response is calculated, deliberate, and intentional. It acknowledges emotion but does not surrender to it. A confident individual feels anger but chooses silence, feels fear but chooses action, feels frustration but chooses strategy. Response transforms energy into authority. Emotional control also functions as a silent form of intimidation. People are inherently attuned to the emotional states of others. Those who are volatile, erratic, or visibly reactive are easy to read, easy to manipulate, and easy to provoke. Calm individuals, on the other hand, create tension without raising their voice. Their composure unsettles those accustomed to chaos. In social or professional settings, the ability to maintain emotional equilibrium in the face of provocation is more commanding than volume, threats, or dominance. Emotional stability communicates certainty, inner strength, and mastery, qualities that others instinctively respect or fear. Fear, in particular, is a tool for demonstrating control. People who panic, hesitate, or overreact signal vulnerability. They invite pressure, criticism, and dominance. Emotional control allows you to appear unshakable even in high-stakes situations. This is not pretense. It is a conscious choice to observe, assess, and act with precision while others are consumed by their impulses. Fear becomes a lens for clarity rather than a cage for hesitation. Every moment of composure reinforces authority. Anger, too, is a double-edged sword. Uncontrolled anger destroys relationships, credibility, and opportunity. But controlled anger, focused, precise, and measured, signals power. Rarely do confident individuals erupt into rage. Instead, they deploy emotion strategically. Their calm presence, in contrast to others' chaos, amplifies their authority. Emotional control is not the absence of feeling. It is the mastery of it. It is understanding that letting emotion dictate action is surrender, while harnessing it transforms influence. Another aspect of emotional control is patience. Impulsivity is a product of emotional weakness. Those who react immediately are slaves to circumstance, driven by anxiety, desire, or ego. Patience allows observation, strategy, and timing. A calm person can wait for the right moment to act, speak, or assert dominance. Patience amplifies power because it creates tension, anticipation, and uncertainty. Others may act hastily and regretfully. The emotionally disciplined individual remains deliberate and untouchable. Self-awareness is the cornerstone of emotional control. Without recognizing one's emotional triggers, it is impossible to master them. The confident person studies themselves ruthlessly. Which situations provoke fear? Anger or insecurity? Which words, actions, or environments disrupt composure? This self-knowledge allows them to anticipate and neutralize internal reactions before they manifest externally. Authority begins internally. If you cannot control yourself, you cannot command others. In practical terms, emotional control extends to every sphere of life. In negotiations, maintaining calm under pressure allows one to extract maximum advantage. In conflict, emotional discipline prevents escalation and positions the individual as the rational authority. In leadership, calmness inspires confidence in others, whereas emotional volatility undermines trust. Even in personal relationships, the ability to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively cultivates respect, influence, and loyalty. Emotional mastery is universal in its utility. Many people mistake dominance for power. They believe raising their voice, intimidating others, or acting aggressively is strength. In truth, aggression driven by unregulated emotion is the hallmark of weakness. It is reactive, temporary, and exhausting. True authority is quiet, deliberate, and magnetic. Emotional control is the difference between someone who commands naturally and someone who pretends to command through intimidation. People instinctively follow those who are steady, composed, and unshakable because they sense reliability, competence, and foresight. Cultivating emotional control requires deliberate practice. It is not innate. It is forged through awareness, discipline, and repeated confrontation with discomfort. Techniques such as mindfulness, reflection, controlled exposure to challenging situations, and deliberate regulation of thoughts and physical responses are essential. Each controlled response strengthens the neural pathways associated with composure and reduces the reflexive pull of impulsive reaction. Over time, emotional control becomes instinctive, automatic, and unwavering. A critical component is detachment. Detachment is not coldness or indifference, it is clarity. It is the ability to separate yourself from the emotional chaos around you, to observe rather than be consumed. Detachment allows you to act rationally, even when others are emotional. It is a shield, a lens, and a weapon. Combined with patience and self-awareness, detachment ensures that your authority is never undermined by external forces or internal impulses. Finally, emotional control is inseparable from self-respect. When you respect yourself, you refuse to be hijacked by the opinions, provocations, or judgments of others. Emotional discipline becomes a natural extension of your identity. You do not react to insults, threats, or pressure because you recognize that your value, your composure, and your authority are independent of them. This independence is dangerous. It creates a psychological armor that few can penetrate and a presence that cannot be ignored. In conclusion, emotional control is not optional. It is the foundation of dangerous confidence. It transforms fear into clarity, impulsivity into strategy, and chaos into authority. Those who master it command respect without raising their voice, influence outcomes without aggression, and project power without effort. Emotional discipline is not about denying your humanity. It is about harnessing it. Every thought, feeling, and impulse is under your direction. This mastery is the ultimate form of authority, and it is the hallmark of the dangerously confident individual. Chapter 6. Stop needing approval. Most people live their entire lives trapped in a prison of other people's opinions. From the moment we are born, we are taught that approval is safety. Parents, teachers, friends, and society reward compliance and punish deviation. Over time, we learn to bend, adapt, and even hide ourselves in order to be accepted. We measure our worth by likes, praise, attention, and recognition. But this is a trap. Seeking approval is a subtle form of slavery, a voluntary surrender of your freedom, your confidence, and ultimately, your power. Dependence on approval is seductive because it feels like certainty. If someone validates your choices, compliments your work, or praises your appearance, it temporarily quiets the inner critic. But that sense of worth is borrowed. It exists only as long as someone else grants it. When the validation disappears, or worse, when criticism replaces it, your sense of self collapses. Approval creates a fragile identity, one that shifts with every nod, comment, or glance. The dangerously confident individual understands that true authority begins where external validation ends. The need for approval manifests in countless ways: over-explaining yourself, apologizing unnecessarily, people-pleasing, or avoiding decisions that might provoke disagreement. These behaviors are subtle but corrosive. Each concession, each reassurance-seeking behavior chips away at self-respect. The mind becomes conditioned to prioritize comfort over truth, compliance over conviction, and others' opinions over your own instincts. Over time, you lose touch with your own authority, identity, and desires. You exist as a reflection of expectations rather than a force of your own making. The psychology behind this dependency is simple. Humans are social animals. Evolutionarily, being rejected by the group could mean death. Even now, our brains are wired to crave acceptance, approval, and recognition. Fear of judgment is primal. Fear of rejection is instinctual. But in modern society, these survival mechanisms are weaponized against us. They keep us compliant, manipulable, and dependent. Dangerous confidence is born the moment you break free from this instinct, not by ignoring it, but by mastering it. Breaking the need for approval begins with self-awareness. Notice when your decisions, words, or actions are motivated primarily by what others might think. Are you saying yes because you want approval? Are you holding back your opinions to avoid disagreement? Are you over-explaining yourself to prevent judgment? Recognition is the first step to liberation. Only when you see how deeply approval governs you can you start reclaiming control. The next step is permission to be disliked. This is a revolutionary concept for most people. The truth is, not everyone will like you, and trying to make everyone do so is a path to mediocrity, exhaustion, and despair. Confidence is about knowing who you are and standing firm, even when others resist, disagree, or criticize. When you embrace the idea that being disliked is inevitable and acceptable, you remove one of the greatest constraints on action. You act freely, unburdened by the chains of perception. Self-validation is the antidote to approval dependency. Instead of looking outward for reassurance, you cultivate certainty within. Celebrate your decisions, honor your instincts, and acknowledge your own achievements. This does not require arrogance or entitlement. It requires honesty. You are not seeking superiority, but alignment. Every time you affirm your choices internally, you reinforce the foundation of your confidence. Your inner authority grows, and the opinions of others begin to fade in importance. Another key component is boundaries. People who need approval rarely say no. They tolerate disrespect, compromise their values, and accept unfair treatment in order to be liked. Learning to set and enforce boundaries without guilt is a radical act of self-sovereignty. Boundaries are a declaration that your judgment matters, your time matters, and your integrity matters more than anyone else's opinion. When you protect your space and enforce your rules, approval becomes irrelevant. Your power becomes intrinsic rather than borrowed. Letting go of approval also changes your relationship with fear. Many of us avoid action because we fear judgment, ridicule, or rejection. Approval seeking amplifies fear, making inaction seem safer than authenticity. Confidence requires acting despite fear. When you stop needing others' validation, fear loses its grip. You no longer freeze in anticipation of criticism. Instead, you act decisively, fully aware that not everyone will applaud, but that their applause was never necessary for your worth or power. Social dynamics shift dramatically once approval is abandoned. People respond differently to those who do not seek validation. Subtle authority emerges. Others sense that you operate independently, that your decisions are grounded in your own judgment, not their approval. This attracts respect, sometimes admiration, and often quiet fear. The power of indifference, true indifference, is a weapon. Those who are desperate for approval cannot understand it. They are unsettled by it. And in that discomfort, your authority grows. The process is gradual but cumulative. Every decision made without seeking approval, every boundary enforced without guilt, every act of authenticity in the face of judgment strengthens your inner authority. At first, it feels uncomfortable. You will notice resistance from others, questions, criticism, even subtle manipulation designed to pull you back into dependence. This is natural. The moment you step away from approval, the world tests you. It is a necessary trial. True confidence is forged in these tests, not in ease. Dangerous confidence ultimately is impossible without severing the need for approval. Confidence is self-contained. It does not rely on applause, validation, or recognition. It thrives in solitude and uncertainty. It is calm, deliberate, and unwavering. Once you stop needing approval, your decisions become sharper, your presence more magnetic, and your authority invisible yet undeniable. You act as though you own your life, and in truth, you do. In conclusion, approval is a subtle form of control, a soft chain that binds your freedom, creativity, and power. Breaking free requires awareness, self-validation, boundaries, and the courage to embrace discomfort and even disapproval. Every step toward independence strengthens your inner authority and brings you closer to dangerous confidence. Once liberated, you no longer exist to satisfy others. You exist to act, to create, and to live with unshakable certainty in your own power. Approval becomes irrelevant. Control becomes yours. Chapter 7. Mastering your inner dialogue. The most dangerous battlefield you will ever face is not in the streets, the boardroom, or on stage. It is in your mind. Every thought you entertain, every sentence you tell yourself, every assumption you make silently shapes your reality. The inner dialogue, the constant mental chatter, is the true engine of confidence or insecurity. Mastering it is the difference between someone who acts with unshakable authority and someone who flounders, reacts, and doubts at every turn. For most people, the inner dialogue is a tyrant. It whispers doubts, magnifies fears, and repeats every past mistake as though it were proof of incompetence. You can't do this, it says. What if they judge you? You're not enough. These are not neutral thoughts, they are chains. They dictate behavior, posture, tone of voice, and decisions, often without conscious awareness. If your internal voice is weak, negative, or chaotic, no amount of external action can compensate. Confidence that comes from external sources is temporary. When your internal dialogue undermines you, the world feels hostile and fear feels permanent. The first step in mastering your inner dialogue is awareness. You must observe your thoughts as a detached witness, identifying patterns of self-doubt, fear, or procrastination. Journaling, meditation, or even mental check-ins during the day can reveal how often your mind sabotages you. Awareness is not enough, however. Recognition only sets the stage for change. Once you see the patterns, you must actively rewrite them. Rewriting your inner dialogue begins with intentionality. Every thought you entertain is either reinforcing your power or eroding it. Dangerous confidence is not born from wishful thinking. It is cultivated by deliberately shaping your mental environment. When doubt arises, acknowledge it without surrendering to it. Replace it with statements grounded in reality and aligned with your goals. Instead of, "I can't handle this," say, "I will handle this step by step, as I always have." Language matters because your mind does not distinguish between observation and command. It reacts to the energy behind the thought. One of the most corrosive patterns in inner dialogue is rumination. People endlessly replay mistakes, conversations, or imagined failures. They ask, "What did I do wrong?" or "Why didn't they like me?" Rumination is a feedback loop that trains the mind to anticipate defeat. Confidence cannot survive in this cycle. Mastery of your inner dialogue requires breaking rumination with focus, action, and mental discipline. Recognize the thought, examine it briefly, and then redirect attention toward what can be controlled, improved, or executed. Another powerful tool is visualization and mental rehearsal. Confident people run scenarios in their minds before facing challenges. They rehearse conversations, meetings, or performances with clarity, composure, and authority. Mental rehearsal strengthens the neural pathways associated with success. Your mind begins to treat these rehearsals as familiar terrain, reducing fear and uncertainty when reality arrives. This is not fantasy, it is preparation. The inner dialogue becomes a coach, not a critic. Emotions are inseparable from inner dialogue. Thoughts without emotional resonance have little impact, but thoughts charged with controlled emotional energy influence behavior deeply. Fearful thoughts amplify anxiety. Confident thoughts, imagined with certainty and calm, reinforce composure. When mastering your inner dialogue, it is essential to pair words with controlled emotional states. Speak to yourself with conviction, even if initially it feels forced. Repetition and emotional alignment strengthen the message, transforming belief into habit. Self-identity is shaped by inner dialogue more than by external events. If your mental narrative tells you that you are weak, insecure, or inadequate, your behavior will inevitably reflect that. Dangerous confidence arises when the inner dialogue reinforces competence, resilience, and authority. You must create a mental persona that is calm under pressure, decisive in action, and unshakable in presence. Over time, the outer self aligns with this inner persona, and confidence becomes inherent rather than performative. A critical obstacle is self-criticism disguised as honesty. Many people pride themselves on keeping it real internally, constantly criticizing themselves for imagined flaws. This practice erodes trust in your own judgment and fuels fear of action. True mastery of inner dialogue requires a balance. Acknowledge mistakes without self-condemnation. Learn from failure without diminishing your worth, and maintain a narrative of growth, strength, and capability. Critique becomes analytical rather than emotional. Dangerous confidence also requires silencing comparison. The inner dialogue often measures your worth against others. They are better than me, I don't belong, or I'm behind. These thoughts are the mind's trap, keeping you dependent on external reference points. Mastery requires redirecting focus inward. I measure myself by my growth, my actions, and my standards. When your mind stops comparing, you stop seeking approval and confidence becomes independent of circumstance. Consistency is the final pillar of mastery. The inner dialogue is like a muscle. It grows stronger with repetition and weakens when neglected. Daily practice of positive, disciplined, and intentional thought patterns solidifies your internal authority. Each day, each decision, each controlled thought adds to a cumulative reservoir of confidence that no external force can easily drain. The mind becomes your ally rather than your jailer. Consider the impact on social dynamics. Individuals with mastered inner dialogue do not overreact, over-explain, or seek validation. Their words, actions, and presence reflect internal certainty. They are magnetic because others sense that their confidence is grounded in reality, not ego or performance. In conflict, they remain composed, strategic, and unshakable. In leadership, their decisiveness inspires trust. In life, their choices are deliberate, not reactive. This internal authority is far more powerful than charm, aggression, or loudness. Mastery of inner dialogue is not a quick fix. It requires ruthless self-awareness, discipline, and persistence. It demands confronting fear, quieting doubt, and silencing the voices that undermine your authority. But the rewards are profound. Unshakable confidence, clarity under pressure, independence from approval, and the ability to act decisively in any situation. When your mind is disciplined, your presence becomes dangerous, magnetic, and respected. In the end, mastering your inner dialogue is not about denying thoughts or emotions. It is about directing them. It is the process of turning the mind from a chaotic battlefield into a strategic command center. Every word you tell yourself shapes reality. Every internal statement of authority strengthens your power. Dangerous confidence is born in this inner theater. When you finally control your internal narrative, the world has no choice but to respond to the force you have become. Chapter 8. Fear is fuel, not a stop sign. Fear is the most primal force within human consciousness. It is a biological imperative, a survival mechanism honed over millennia to protect us from predators and danger. Yet in modern life, fear is rarely a literal threat. It has been repurposed by the mind, amplified by society, and weaponized by circumstance. Most people treat fear as a stop sign, an unyielding barrier that signals they should pause, retreat, or surrender. Dangerous confidence, however, understands that fear is not an obstacle, but a resource. Fear is energy. Fear is fuel. It is a signal pointing toward growth, opportunity, and dominance. The problem is that fear feels real and urgent. When faced with uncertainty, rejection, or potential failure, the body reacts as if survival itself is at stake. Heart rate spikes, palms sweat, thoughts race, and muscles tighten. These reactions are natural. They are evolution's way of forcing action. But most people misinterpret them. They see fear as a verdict. You cannot do this, rather than a signal. You are about to step into something that matters. The mind convinces them that hesitation is safety, when in truth, hesitation is stagnation. Understanding the nature of fear is the first step toward mastery. Fear is neither good nor bad. It is neutral. Its purpose is to alert you to the significance of a situation. When you feel fear, you are approaching a threshold, an area of uncertainty where growth occurs. Confidence does not eliminate fear, it harnesses it. The dangerously confident person recognizes the energy, channels it, and transforms it into decisive action. Fear becomes a tool, a signal, a driving force, rather than a chain that binds movement. The second key principle is action despite fear. Fear is never entirely eradicated. It is impossible to live a life of growth, influence, and risk without encountering it constantly. The measure of power is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act even when fear is present. Consider the mind as a battlefield. Every decision you make under fear strengthens neural pathways of courage, resilience, and authority. Hesitation reinforces weakness. Action reinforces mastery. Each deliberate step forward despite fear compounds confidence exponentially. Fear also exposes hidden weaknesses. When you pay attention to what frightens you most, you uncover the areas where your ego, insecurities, or untested skills reside. Most people avoid these moments, believing avoidance is preservation. In reality, avoidance is surrender. Dangerous confidence thrives in the tension of fear because that is where growth is forged. The very moments that terrify you are often the moments that define your power, your presence, and your authority. Control over fear requires mental reframing. Instead of telling yourself, "This is dangerous, I cannot do it," you learn to say, "This is significant, I will face it." Language shapes perception. Words energize the mind and body, not merely emotionally, but physiologically. Fear triggers adrenaline, sharpens senses, and heightens awareness. When channeled through confidence, it becomes focus, not paralysis. The adrenaline that would immobilize a fearful person propels a confident one forward with precision and clarity. Preparation amplifies this mastery. Dangerous confidence is not reckless. It studies, practices, and rehearses before stepping into the unknown. Knowledge and preparation do not eliminate fear, they give it structure and context. When you understand the battlefield, anticipate outcomes, and build skills, fear shifts from chaos to a tool of calculation. The mind and body respond with heightened readiness rather than blind panic. Fear becomes an ally in strategy, not a saboteur of action. Another dimension is the social perception of fear. Most people fear judgment, rejection, or failure more than physical danger. They shrink in the presence of criticism, hesitate under pressure, and compromise their integrity to avoid disapproval. This is the subtle poison of fear. It undermines confidence, saps authority, and erodes self-trust. The dangerously confident individual understands that external judgment is irrelevant. Fear of others' opinions is neutralized when self-trust is absolute. Fear is respected but never worshipped. It is a compass, not a dictator. Physical awareness complements mental mastery. The body and mind are inseparable. Physiological responses amplify emotional reactions. Controlling breath, maintaining posture, and grounding the body in tense situations diminishes the paralyzing effects of fear. Calmness in motion, even when adrenaline surges, communicates authority. Others sense it immediately. A person who moves decisively despite fear radiates power. Fear, when mastered, becomes a signal of readiness, a badge of resilience, and a beacon of dominance. Repetition is essential for mastery. Facing fear repeatedly desensitizes the mind to panic and reinforces courage as a habit. Each challenge, each uncomfortable interaction, each calculated risk strengthens neural pathways associated with control, presence, and assertiveness. Avoidance, conversely, strengthens anxiety and reinforces the perception of vulnerability. Mastery of fear is therefore cumulative. Confidence grows incrementally with each confrontation, each step taken despite discomfort. Finally, understanding the psychology of others amplifies your power. Fear is contagious. People who hesitate, panic, or flinch under pressure invite domination. Those who act decisively, calmly, and strategically in fear command attention, respect, and often compliance. Emotional states are perceived subconsciously. Mastery of fear projects authority. Fear becomes not only fuel for your own action, but also a tool to influence others, to assert presence, and to shape outcomes in your favor. In conclusion, fear is not an enemy to be defeated. It is a signal, a resource, and a catalyst for growth. Dangerous confidence emerges not in the absence of fear, but in the presence of it. The power lies in transforming fear into focus, hesitation into action, and panic into precision. Every moment of deliberate movement in fear strengthens self-trust, sharpens strategy, and solidifies authority. Fear is the shadow that accompanies all greatness. Master it, and it will illuminate the path to unshakable confidence, unstoppable action, and dangerous presence. Chapter 9. The Power of Self-Respect. Self-respect is the cornerstone of confidence. It is the invisible force that governs how you allow yourself to be treated, how you set boundaries, and how you navigate the world. Without self-respect, all external markers of success, status, wealth, influence, are hollow. They are fragile facades, easily shattered by criticism, rejection, or challenge. Dangerous confidence begins with an unshakable foundation of self-respect. It is the internal compass that ensures your actions, decisions, and presence are aligned with your true value regardless of external validation. Most people underestimate the subtlety of self-respect. It is not about ego, arrogance, or entitlement. Arrogance is loud. Self-respect is quiet. Arrogance demands recognition. Self-respect requires no one's approval. Self-respect is the calm, unwavering acknowledgement that your time, energy, and boundaries are not negotiable commodities. It manifests in your posture, tone, and interactions. It is reflected in the decisions you make under pressure and in the lines you draw when confronted with disrespect. The first step toward cultivating self-respect is recognition of your worth. Many people operate under subconscious scripts of inadequacy, comparison, and self-doubt. They overcompensate with people-pleasing, over-explaining, or relentless seeking of approval. These behaviors are symptoms of a fractured internal value system. To reclaim self-respect, you must confront these scripts. Ask yourself, do I act according to my values or according to what others expect? Do I compromise my boundaries to gain approval? Recognition is the first act of rebellion against internalized subservience. Self-respect is inseparable from boundaries. Boundaries are declarations. I will not accept disrespect. I will not compromise my integrity. I will not be manipulated. People with weak boundaries unconsciously signal that their energy is negotiable, their time is disposable, and their presence is contingent on others' whims. Setting and enforcing boundaries requires discipline, clarity, and sometimes discomfort. The world resists individuals who claim sovereignty over themselves, but this resistance is a test of authenticity. Every boundary maintained reinforces internal authority and strengthens self-respect. Respecting yourself also means refusing to tolerate mistreatment. This applies to personal relationships, professional settings, and social interactions. Those who allow manipulation, bullying, or constant criticism cultivate weakness in others' eyes and doubt in their own mind. Dangerous confidence emerges when you confront these dynamics with calm authority. You do not seek revenge or domination. You simply refuse to accept what violates your principles. This refusal communicates value far more powerfully than words, threats, or displays of aggression. Self-respect is also reflected in your commitment to integrity. Integrity is alignment between values, words, and actions. A person who maintains integrity earns not only respect from others, but also internal certainty. This alignment eliminates internal conflict, the quiet, corrosive voice that questions your choices, motives, and actions. When your thoughts, words, and actions are aligned, confidence becomes effortless because it no longer depends on justification or validation. Integrity reinforces self-respect, and self-respect reinforces authority. Another critical aspect of self-respect is the management of energy. Those who respect themselves are deliberate in where they invest time, attention, and effort. They recognize that energy is finite and that giving it indiscriminately erodes power. This does not mean cold calculation or indifference. It means discerning action, choosing where to act, when to engage, and when to withdraw amplifies presence. Self-respect ensures that your energy is spent deliberately, creating gravity and authority rather than depletion and fragility. Self-respect also requires embracing emotional accountability. Many people project blame onto circumstances, other people, or fate. They externalize responsibility and allow their power to be contingent on external factors. Self-respect turns this dynamic inside out. You take ownership of your emotions, reactions, and decisions. Emotional accountability is not self-criticism. It is sovereignty. By mastering your internal state, you signal to the world that your power is intrinsic, independent of opinion, approval, or circumstance. The social implications of self-respect are profound. Individuals with high self-respect are magnetic. Others sense authority, composure, and stability. Respect is drawn not by loudness, aggression, or performance, but by the quiet, unyielding alignment of values, presence, and actions. Conversely, those lacking self-respect are often manipulated, undermined, or ignored, regardless of external achievements. Self-respect acts as both armor and signal, protecting you from exploitation while communicating strength. Self-respect and dangerous confidence are inseparable. Without self-respect, confidence is borrowed from ego, social approval, or performance. It is loud, fragile, and reactive. With self-respect, confidence becomes intrinsic, calm, and enduring. You no longer act to prove anything. You act to align with reality, values, and purpose. Every decision, every boundary, every action is reinforced by the knowledge that you are your own authority. Cultivating self-respect requires discipline, reflection, and courage. It demands confronting years of internalized messages of inadequacy, resisting social pressure, and acting consistently in alignment with your principles. It is uncomfortable at first. Others may resist, criticize, or attempt to manipulate you back into compliance. These challenges are tests, not threats. Each act of steadfastness strengthens internal authority, reinforces boundaries, and amplifies presence. Self-respect also transforms how you perceive failure. A person who respects themselves does not collapse under criticism, rejection, or setbacks. Failure is reframed as a teacher, not a verdict. Confidence derived from self-respect is resilient because it is rooted in internal truth rather than external perception. When you maintain self-respect, external outcomes become data, not determinants of value. In conclusion, self-respect is the invisible engine behind dangerous confidence. It is reflected in boundaries, integrity, emotional accountability, and deliberate action. It shields you from manipulation, grants clarity in decision-making, and projects authority without effort. Confidence built on self-respect is intrinsic, calm, and unstoppable. Without it, confidence is performative, dependent, and fragile. Master self-respect, and you step into a domain where others cannot shake you and where your presence alone communicates power, authority, and unassailable confidence. Chapter 10. The Discipline of Daily Excellence. Confidence is not an abstract concept. It is not a feeling that can be summoned at will, nor is it a performance that can be faked for attention. True, dangerous confidence is forged in the daily grind. The small, consistent acts of discipline that shape your mind, body, and character over time. Excellence is not an occasional display. It is a habit. And daily discipline is the vehicle through which this excellence becomes permanent, internalized, and unstoppable. Most people misunderstand discipline. They see it as restriction, punishment, or rigidity. They imagine it as early mornings, long hours, and endless toil, and they resist. But discipline is freedom. Freedom from chaos, procrastination, and self-doubt. It is the framework that allows consistent action, deliberate progress, and the building of authority. Without discipline, talent is wasted, knowledge is unused, and confidence becomes hollow, dependent on external circumstances rather than internal mastery. The first principle of daily excellence is consistency. Small actions, repeated relentlessly, compound into extraordinary results. Waking early, completing tasks without delay, reading daily, exercising, or practicing your craft, these are not dramatic acts in themselves, but repeated day after day, week after week. They build momentum that is unstoppable. Dangerous confidence is rarely born from sporadic effort. It emerges from the silent accumulation of small victories, each one reinforcing competence, self-trust, and authority. Discipline requires intentionality. It is not enough to act. You must act deliberately, aligned with your highest goals. Every task, every choice, every interaction should be a brick in the foundation of mastery. Laziness, distraction, and half-hearted effort erode confidence faster than criticism or failure ever could. The mind, body, and reputation are mirrors. Consistent, intentional action reflects competence, reliability, and inner authority. Discipline shapes your reality because it shapes your habits, and habits shape your identity. Another key component is self-accountability. Most people drift through life, blaming circumstances, others, or bad luck for failures. Dangerous confidence does not make excuses. It acknowledges responsibility for results, actions, and decisions. Self-accountability is not about self-punishment. It is about honesty. Every day you examine where you fell short, identify improvements, and act to correct them. Accountability transforms mistakes from weaknesses into tools for growth. It converts failure into fuel for refinement, reinforcing the belief that you are capable, reliable, and resilient. The discipline of daily excellence also demands mental fortitude. Life is inherently chaotic and unpredictable. Motivation alone is fleeting. Without discipline, confidence becomes conditional, dependent on mood, circumstances, or energy levels. By cultivating mental resilience, you maintain action even when desire wanes, fatigue sets in, or challenges arise. The dangerously confident individual does not wait for inspiration. They act because action itself is the source of mastery. This consistency becomes a habit that conditions the mind to anticipate achievement, not excuses. Daily excellence requires physical mastery as well. The body is not separate from confidence, it is its vessel. Discipline in physical health, exercise, posture, and energy management signals competence to yourself and others. A strong, controlled body enhances presence, focus, and resilience. Physical neglect undermines mental authority. Fatigue, poor posture, and lethargy project weakness. Excellence is holistic. It combines mental clarity, emotional regulation, and physical readiness. Mastery in one area supports mastery in all others. Time management is another pillar of daily discipline. Most people waste hours reacting to distractions, attending to trivialities, or prioritizing the needs of others above their own. Dangerous confidence comes from deliberate control of time. Every day is treated as a series of intentional decisions: what to focus on, what to ignore, and how to invest energy where it yields the greatest return. When time is controlled, priorities are clear, and progress becomes inevitable. Discipline structures reality, ensuring that action is deliberate, measurable, and aligned with long-term objectives. Another aspect is embracing discomfort. Excellence is never comfortable. It requires stepping into the friction of resistance, uncertainty, and challenge. Daily discipline is not always convenient, enjoyable, or easy. It demands persistence in the face of resistance and the courage to act when others retreat. Every act of deliberate discomfort strengthens resolve, reinforces self-trust, and sharpens presence. This cumulative pressure molds the mind into one that thrives under challenge rather than crumbles. Reflection is critical to sustaining discipline. Each day, you must evaluate performance, habits, and choices. Where did you excel? Where did you compromise? What patterns of avoidance or weakness remain? Reflection is not judgment, it is calibration. It allows adjustment and optimization, ensuring that each day builds upon the last rather than repeating errors. The dangerously confident individual uses reflection as a weapon, refining their methods, strategy, and mental state continuously. Discipline also develops emotional endurance. In moments of stress, frustration, or disappointment, it is discipline that keeps you grounded. The mind conditioned to daily excellence does not panic under pressure. It moves with deliberate clarity. Emotional endurance transforms fear, doubt, and fatigue from obstacles into tools for focus and strategy. The result is presence, calm, deliberate, and commanding, regardless of circumstance. Ultimately, the discipline of daily excellence is a declaration of self-respect and self-trust. It signals that your standards are non-negotiable, that your time and energy are valuable, and that your growth is intentional. It eliminates dependence on motivation, luck, or external validation. Confidence built on daily discipline is durable because it is earned relentlessly. It is quiet but unshakable, invisible but magnetic. The habits of daily excellence create a person who moves through the world with certainty, authority, and dangerous presence. In conclusion, confidence is forged, not inherited. It is built through the relentless practice of excellence, the daily alignment of actions with goals, and the disciplined control of mind, body, and energy. Daily discipline is the engine that converts intention into results, fear into fuel, and potential into mastery. Those who embrace it do not merely survive, they dominate. Dangerous confidence is the product of relentless, uncompromising daily excellence. It is invisible, unstoppable, and undeniable. Chapter 11. The Art of Strategic Silence. Silence is one of the most underestimated tools of power. In a world obsessed with noise, loud opinions, constant communication, and performative action, strategic silence is a weapon few truly master. Most people fear silence, confusing it with weakness, hesitation, or indecision. They fill every pause with words, explanations, or justifications, unaware that speech, when uncontrolled, often reveals insecurity rather than authority. Dangerous confidence, however, understands that silence is not emptiness. It is presence, leverage, and control. The first principle of strategic silence is observation. A silent individual watches, listens, and absorbs far more than those who speak impulsively. Every gesture, every word, every micro-expression becomes information. In silence, you gain access to knowledge that others reveal unconsciously. People often talk themselves into revealing intentions, fears, or weaknesses when they believe they are being heard. By saying less, you learn more. Silence transforms you into an observer of patterns, a reader of behavior, and a strategist in real time. Silence also conveys authority without aggression. Loudness is often mistaken for power. The truth is, noise signals uncertainty, ego, or neediness. The person who does not feel compelled to fill every space with words projects confidence effortlessly. Others sense this internal certainty, even if it is subtle. Presence becomes the voice. Authority becomes felt, not declared. When strategically deployed, silence makes your eventual words carry far greater weight. The fewer you speak, the more impact each word has. Another key principle is timing. Strategic silence is not passive, it is deliberate. It is choosing when to speak, what to say, and when to remain quiet. Many people rush to respond, fearing judgment or misunderstanding. They react instantly, missing the power of the pause. The dangerously confident individual uses silence to create tension, anticipation, and authority. A well-timed pause communicates thoughtfulness, self-control, and dominance. It forces others to fill the void, often revealing more than they intended. Silence is also a defense mechanism against manipulation. Most social interactions are laden with subtle pressures, persuasion, guilt, or intimidation. Speaking too quickly, defending yourself unnecessarily, or over-explaining invites exploitation. Silence, however, is impermeable. It allows you to process, analyze, and respond from a position of strength rather than reaction. The mind remains unexposed, your strategy intact, and your authority unchallenged. Those who cannot tolerate silence are often at your mercy, revealing intentions, fears, or weaknesses that can be leveraged strategically. Emotional control is inseparable from strategic silence. Most people speak impulsively when angered, frustrated, or anxious. Words spoken in emotional reactivity rarely reflect rational thought or long-term objectives. Silence allows emotional calibration. It grants the power to respond rather than react. When others are consumed by emotion, your composed quiet becomes a signal of unshakable confidence. Silence transforms tension into advantage. It makes your presence commanding, even in chaos. Strategic silence also enhances persuasion and influence. In negotiations, debates, or high-stakes discussions, the person who speaks less often controls the rhythm. Silence invites others to fill gaps, justify positions, or over-explain. This creates leverage. Authority emerges not from domination, but from measured restraint. People naturally defer to those who project certainty, calmness, and control, qualities amplified by silence. A single, well-placed statement after a deliberate pause carries far more influence than a torrent of words. Another dimension of silence is self-reflection. The mind needs space to process experiences, evaluate choices, and integrate lessons. Many people are constantly distracted by external chatter, social media, or conversation, leaving no room for inner dialogue. Strategic silence allows reflection, strengthening self-trust, clarity, and decision-making. It ensures that your actions, when taken, are deliberate, aligned, and powerful. Silence is not emptiness. It is preparation, rehearsal, and foresight in real time. Silence also conveys respect and boundaries. When you remain calm and quiet in the presence of others' chaos, you demonstrate that your energy is not disposable. You do not need to compete for attention, approval, or dominance. By choosing when to speak, you protect your authority and reinforce self-respect. People learn, consciously or unconsciously, that your presence carries weight, that your engagement is valuable, and that your words are deliberate. Silence, in this context, becomes a tool of psychological leverage. However, strategic silence requires discernment. Silence without purpose can be misinterpreted as insecurity, detachment, or disengagement. The art lies in knowing when to combine silence with action, when to let others speak, and when to make your voice heard. Every pause, every withheld comment, and every measured response should be intentional, serving a clear objective. Silence without direction is merely avoidance. Silence with purpose is authority. The social impact of strategic silence is profound. In professional, personal, and social spheres, people unconsciously defer to those who speak less but carry more weight. Noise is consumed by ego, insecurity, or performative needs. Presence grounded in silence communicates mastery, patience, and internal certainty. Others are drawn to it, intimidated by it, and often influenced by it without realizing why. Silence becomes a silent force field of influence and power. Daily practice is essential for mastery. Begin by observing where you speak out of habit, fear, or insecurity. Practice listening more than speaking, pausing before responding, and allowing others to reveal themselves through their own words. Journal about moments where silence shifted outcomes in your favor. Over time, strategic silence becomes intuitive, a natural extension of confidence rather than a deliberate tactic. It evolves into presence, authority, and influence seamlessly integrated into every interaction. Ultimately, dangerous confidence is inseparable from the mastery of silence. The ability to observe, calculate, and act selectively grants power far beyond words. It protects you from manipulation, enhances influence, and projects authority effortlessly. Silence is not passive. It is active, deliberate, and strategic. It is both shield and sword, invisible yet potent. When mastered, silence becomes a defining feature of presence, a signal that commands attention without effort. In conclusion, the art of strategic silence is a foundational skill for anyone seeking dangerous confidence. It transforms observation into advantage, restraint into authority, and patience into influence. Those who master it act deliberately, speak selectively, and command presence effortlessly. Silence is not emptiness. It is a weapon, a shield, and a conduit of power. The more you cultivate it, the more your confidence becomes inherent, magnetic, and unshakable. In the world of influence and authority, those who speak less often control more. Silence, when wielded with purpose, is the ultimate sign of mastery. Chapter 12, The Dangerous Confidence Blueprint. Conclusion. Dangerous confidence is not a gift. It is not luck, charm, or inherited charisma. It is forged. It is earned. Every act, every thought, every discipline, every silent observation, and every boundary carefully drawn builds a foundation for a life lived on your terms. By now, you have walked through the principles that separate the dangerously confident from the reactive, performative, and insecure. You have learned that confidence is not loudness, not arrogance, not borrowed validation. It is an internal force, quiet but unshakable, deliberate yet fluid, grounded in self-mastery and clarity of purpose. The journey to dangerous confidence begins with self-awareness. You must first confront your internal patterns, the self-doubt, the need for approval, the rumination, and the fear that has shaped your behavior for years. Recognition is the spark. It illuminates the traps, weaknesses, and lies you have unconsciously lived by. Without seeing the chains that bind you, you cannot break them. Dangerous confidence requires relentless honesty. You must know yourself deeply, even the parts you would rather hide, because mastery begins internally. From there, you reclaim emotional authority. Fear, anger, frustration, and desire are not eliminated. They are harnessed. You learn to act despite fear, to respond rather than react, and to channel emotion as fuel for action. Emotional discipline is not about repression, it is about transformation. The dangerously confident individual converts every pang of doubt into focus, every spike of anger into strategic energy, and every twinge of fear into awareness and courage. This internal control is invisible to others, yet radiates as a magnetic, almost imperceptible authority. Self-respect emerges as the unshakable backbone of your confidence. You draw boundaries, uphold integrity, and act according to your own standards rather than the whims of others. Approval becomes irrelevant. You do not bend to judgment, praise, or criticism because your value is internal, immutable, and independent. Dangerous confidence cannot coexist with compromise of self-worth. Every act of self-respect reinforces authority, magnifies presence, and signals power to the world without aggression or explanation. The disciplined mind follows a daily practice of excellence. Confidence is not a switch to be flipped. It is the product of habits, small, intentional actions, mental, emotional, and physical, compound into mastery over time. Daily routines, self-reflection, rehearsal, and accountability are the invisible gears that turn potential into competence, competence into authority, and authority into presence. Discipline is freedom. It is the scaffolding upon which the edifice of dangerous confidence is built. Without it, brilliance is scattered, potential is wasted, and confidence remains fragile. Strategic silence and observation become your weapons. By speaking less and listening more, by pausing instead of reacting, you create a gravitational pull that draws attention and respect. Silence is authority. It allows others to reveal themselves, exposes motives, and grants insight without exposing your own vulnerabilities. Words are powerful, but in mastery, you learn that restraint often communicates more than noise. The dangerously confident wield silence deliberately, projecting presence and control without effort or artifice. Fear, when understood, ceases to be a stop sign. It becomes a compass pointing to growth, challenge, and influence. Every act taken despite fear strengthens the mind, body, and will. Those who embrace discomfort, risk, and uncertainty cultivate resilience, decisiveness, and gravitas. Dangerous confidence is not the absence of fear. It is the transformation of fear into fuel, the conversion of potential paralysis into deliberate, measured, and unstoppable action. The inner dialogue is a silent but powerful ally. Thoughts are energy. Words you tell yourself shape perception, behavior, and reality. Mastering your internal voice transforms doubt into certainty, insecurity into strategy, and hesitation into decisive action. The mind becomes your command center. Every thought aligned with authority, every impulse calibrated with purpose. Confidence is rooted not in external recognition, but in the disciplined, intentional, and deliberate shaping of your internal reality. Ultimately, dangerous confidence is a lifestyle, a philosophy, and a continuous process of refinement. It is never fully complete because mastery is dynamic, not static. Each challenge you face, each interaction, each moment of decision is a test. Some will seek to provoke you, some to manipulate you, some to diminish you. In every moment, your internal authority, the combination of self-respect, emotional mastery, discipline, and strategic action determines the outcome. Confidence is not performative, it is inherent, and it is proven repeatedly in action. This book has outlined the blueprint, but the work is yours. Knowledge without action is vanity. Principles without practice are illusions. Dangerous confidence requires relentless application, daily reflection, deliberate discipline, strategic choices, emotional mastery, and unwavering commitment to self-worth. Every habit you cultivate, every boundary you enforce, every fear you face, and every decision you make under pressure compounds into a presence that is invisible yet undeniable, subtle yet magnetic, quiet yet commanding. As you close this book, remember this. The world cannot give you dangerous confidence. Neither can accolades, wealth, nor status. It is forged internally, in the quiet hours of reflection, the moments of resistance, the disciplined repetition, and the courage to act despite fear, doubt, or discomfort. Confidence is not about being seen. It is about being known to yourself as someone unshakable, deliberate, and sovereign over their own mind, body, and actions. The final truth is that dangerous confidence is freedom. Freedom from the need for approval, freedom from manipulation, fear, and chaos, freedom to act, to speak, to command, and to live without compromise. It is power that is invisible yet felt by all, authority that is earned silently, and presence that cannot be ignored. Those who master it do not merely survive, they dominate the space around them, inspire respect without effort, and navigate the world on their terms. Your path forward is clear. Observe yourself ruthlessly, control your emotions, and channel them strategically. Cultivate self-respect and protect your boundaries. Act daily with discipline, intention, and excellence. Use silence as a tool of authority. Transform fear into fuel. Shape your inner dialogue to reinforce mastery. Dangerous confidence is not a destination. It is the culmination of every choice, habit, and action aligned with your highest self. Each day is a test, a laboratory, and a battlefield. The difference between those who merely react to life and those who command it lies in their mastery of the internal and external forces that shape perception, influence, and reality. Dangerous confidence is invisible armor, silent authority, and unstoppable presence, earned one deliberate act at a time. Step into this life deliberately. Act as though your authority is inherent, because it is. Speak selectively. Move with purpose. Face fear as fuel. Maintain discipline even when unnoticed. Respect yourself even when challenged. Observe, reflect, and refine relentlessly. Dangerous confidence is yours to claim, but only through mastery, action, and unyielding commitment to your internal authority. This is not the end. It is the beginning. Every choice you make from this moment forward builds, strengthens, and solidifies the power you have cultivated. The world will test you, and your response will define you. Dangerous confidence is not about perfection. It is about sovereignty, alignment, and relentless execution. Embrace it, live it, own it. The presence you project, the authority you wield, and the confidence you embody will speak louder than any words ever could. The blueprint has been revealed. The power has always been within you. It is time to step into it.